Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Novel Therapy. I'm Kate Fennessy, aspiring author and social media marketer.
And I'm Helen Brown, New York Times bestselling author.
You are Helen Brown.
I forget sometimes.
It can be really hard to remember who we are.
It's such a complicated name. You know.
Exactly. So welcome everyone. We're very excited that our first episode has been uploaded. It's in the system. So hopefully by now we'll be able to upload really quickly to all the various places that you listen to podcasts. And welcome to those as well who are looking at us on video, because we're going to always record our video as well for those who prefer YouTube. So we're going to start with our checkup.
Yes.
So our checkup is just like what we've been up to. So what have you been up to, Helen, this last week?
Welcome to the Writers' Clinic.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, we didn't say welcome. Yes,
I hope you did your homework from last week. Do you remember what it was apart from writing 1,000 words a day?
I feel like, was my homework about inviting space to... I've really had it in my head about getting in touch with the non-physical and sort of allowing for space to daydream and let that creative side grow. That's what I feel like's been in my head. Was that my homework?
Yes. And have you been looking at trees, or did trees not work for you?
I think, you know, what's been working for me this week has been my fireplace. I've been lighting a few fires, and at home I've got a chimney, a fireplace, and I've been finding that quite a nice therapeutic type of activity where I'm so busy all the time, and I was a few times this week slowed down and just sat and stared at the fire for a bit.
Perfect. That's exactly the sort of homework I was hoping you might be doing.
Oh, wow, that's really good.
Well, my homework is still it's been about moving back into this study. It's my new study space and I absolutely love it, but I've had to sort of cull a lot of things. And in the process of all of this, I've found files and files of letters from readers, and some of them are from 30 years ago, and look, there's no way I could throw those out.
No.
And it's just reminded me of the depth of connection you make through writing letters, and we've lost that a bit with email, and I don't mean to sound like an old dragon, but there's just something very touching and reassuring about humanity, because quite often, you know, you can get pushed aside 3 times in a day in a cafe or something, and you think, oh, the world is crap and beat the crap. But reading these letters, the world is full of really wonderful people, and we need to have more faith in that, I think, and acknowledge the beauty that's in most of us. Of course, there are a few nutters, and I hear from them occasionally, but I would say 98% of people are amazing.
I agree, and I agree.
Amazing!
Oh, there you go. That just reminds me. Where's our jar? I put it up here. I've got the journey jar. I'm just going to grab it. Helen's just going to have to donate $1.
We have it's the equivalent of a swear jar. There are 3 words that I absolutely hate, and I honestly don't use amazing very often, but it's an overused word at the moment, so I'm going to have to put $1 in there. The other word is
journey, which is what the jar's named after.
Yes, and the third word,
lovely, amazing journey. Now, on the first episode, I actually just listened back. I said journey 4 times. So I'm going to have to put $4 in the jar.
And we're just trying to work out what to do. But we're going to have so much money in this jar by the end of the month.
I will give you your tally at the end of this when I hear it back, both of us. But I owe $4, you owe $1.
We thought we should donate it to the Struggling Writers Society, if there is such a thing.
I think Struggling Women Writers Society. If there's not, we'll create it. And you can be the president and I'll be the VP. Oh, that's so funny. Actually, just on that note, quickly, on the letter writing note, I just want to say 2 things. One, I keep so many letters. I have some beautiful, sad, important, funny, lovely letters from my life that I'll never throw away. A lot from my mum, and some that are romantic. And the other thing is that I started to read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley because my daughter's it's on her literature list, and I'm reading all her books this year. And the first few, it's letters so far. It's written in letters over the span of a year, and I'm just loving this format. I'm not sure if it's going to continue, and of course it's old-fashioned language and beautiful, but I'm loving it. So there you go, letters. That's an interesting.
And you can say you're going to keep all your emails in the cloud forever, but you don't go back through them.
And you're right. There's not the same
And some of it,
tenderness.
I love the look of handwriting.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was working on the
vulnerable.
newspaper and I'd get letters most days and I could tell immediately if someone was going to be abusive by the spikiness of their handwriting.
That's funny.
I've lost that skill now.
No, me too.
Yeah.
I write lists, but that's sort of as much as exciting. Yes.
Is that healthy lists or neurotic lists?
Probably a mix. That gets
Some
me
lists
going.
are
It's
good.
work related.
Yeah, that's all right.
It helps me.
That's all right.
Well, there you go. That's interesting. So anyway, let's go to the clinic. So the main part of our podcast is this clinic where Helen's going to give me advice and ideas around this novel that I'm attempting. So I feel that we should open our clinic.
Yeah, good. And I've been thinking more and more, you are writing about healing. You're helping to heal yourself through writing, and with the hope that you may heal others.
Definitely.
And last time we talked about the difference between that and for example, just keeping a diary and gushing all your feelings into it is a great way to heal yourself.
Yes.
What you're doing is taking things a giant step further.
Yeah.
And trying to craft it into a way that may ultimately help others.
Yes.
Could potentially be commercial, and that's my background. So some of my suggestions may be very crass and unacceptable to the greater poets in this world, but I'm just trying to be realistic. And
look, at the end of the day, the commercial element for me just translates to mean that it's accessible to more people.
Exactly.
So therefore, I don't have an issue with that. I think that I'd prefer it to be, I wouldn't, if it was going to get published, I wouldn't want it sitting on the shelf collecting dust because it was so inaccessible. I'd want it to be accessible.
Yeah.
So that's cool with me.
And part of doing this, Kate, means that you've got to completely undress yourself for your reader, though not in a sexual way necessarily, though we'll talk about that too. But you need to be quite courageous to do this, and it's not that you're going to have terrible consequences of any type. No. Really, it's just that you're opening private parts of yourself to share, I guess, your pain. You know, I meet so many people every day, just in cafes or in the street. I love striking up conversations, just not boring ones, not predictable ones. And even,
not amazing ones.
No.
Or lovely ones.
Even in the process of this, I've learned that the most ordinary looking life contains so much pain. Anguish, trauma, we all get it. And yet we're not really given ways to deal with that when it happens. And one of the ways we're not prepared for it is that people aren't open about it. Yeah, well, that's right. And I am quite an open person, but you're right. It's a next level of openness, because this is inviting someone into behind the scenes of who I am, especially even so far, because I'm at 5,000, so I'm still early days, but I've shared an initial, I think my first 3,000 with a friend, and as soon as I sent it to him, I was like, this is full on, like he's going to see who I am, even from that first few scenes. So But assure him it's fiction, you know.
Of course, but you can't help the fact that you wrote it and it came from your mind, and
but you have to get over that.
Oh look, I'm okay with it. It was just I noticed it, that's all. I noticed that feeling of wow. It is a bit like sending a nude selfie.
An emotionally nude selfie.
Emotionally nude selfie. That could be today's title.
And a question I wanted to ask you was, what was the first creative moment in your life that you can remember?
Well, look, it was story writing in grade 1 and prep even, I think as early as that. I remember writing so much volume that the mothers who used to come around correcting the work used to a bit like, Kate's written a fair bit, take a seat, Jenny. Like, they used to almost, not mock me, but I was aware from their reaction that I was writing more than everyone else.
Wow.
I think early on I won a little principal's prize for one of my stories about a rabbit. I still got them all. They're all.
Goodness.
I wrote a lot of stories very young. I wrote poems young. I wrote a poem in year 7. Any of my old school friends at Star will probably remember. That became quite well known amongst the friends. I wrote a few. I wrote one called like Walking Down the Street, Keeping Up a Steady Beat. I thought I was really cool.
Beatnik stuff.
Well, no, I don't know what it was.
Sounds
and I wrote
almost
some ridiculous
pre-rap.
Yeah, but it was a bit dorky, really. But so poetry, all of that was happening in my primary school.
Well, you see, your story's so different from mine because all I ever wanted to be was a ballerina. And I begged my mother to take me to ballet classes, and she knew that I was the wrong build for ballet, so she taught me into going to creative dancing. And look, that was wonderful because I learned a great love of music and to move with the music.
And expression.
But as I got to be prepubescent, even there I was given the vibe that I was a bit hefty to be prancing around in front of other people, but I was never doing it for other people. I was just dancing for myself. So Mum very kindly directed me at singing lessons, and look, that introduced me to poetry.
Yeah.
English folk music, the way they will tell, or any British folk music, a poignant story of loss and heartache, and with such beauty and with such economy.
Yeah, well, that's so true. Music was a big part of my life growing up too, and I used to get I was quite obsessive. Like, I would get obsessed with, for example, my two brothers were both very musical, like classically trained, you know. Between them, they played just about every instrument in the orchestra. And so I had all this exposure at home, and I remember, for example, Jesus Christ Superstar, the 70s musical. I wouldn't just listen to it, I would listen to it over and over and over again to the point where I knew every lyric, but I was very engaged in the story, and I'd lie on the floor in the lounge room, awash. I must have annoyed everyone else so much, but just listening over and over and over again. But I got really into the characters, and to this day I can still remember all the lyrics of these songs because I was obsessive with it.
Yeah. So you're carrying poetry inside you, which
I've always
is wonderful.
loved poetry.
Yeah, and lyrics are great for that. You know, I love Tom Waits. He's another, you know, current storyteller through music, and you know, I think that's a really healthy thing. And your obsessive nature is also very healthy for a writer, if you don't go overboard.
Kept in check, hopefully. But yeah, you're right. Music, poetry, writing, it was always there from a young age. I probably distanced myself from it from about my teenage years.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're an aspiring writer, this could be an interesting exercise for you to do. Think about your first creative experience, what the reaction was from the people around you, and how it made you feel. I'd be interested. I don't think it will always come from writing.
No.
It might come from somewhere else. So I will be interested to hear back from you if you have a thought there.
It's a nice question to reflect on, because you don't often think about that sort of stuff.
But it's an essential part of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and with where I'm at the moment, in terms of the structure, what I'm finding, I guess what I wanted to ask you today as well is just, I feel a bit like I'm a sculptor with my big slab of clay, and I'm just at the moment getting handfuls of the stuff and slapping it down and trying to make shape. And you know, you've recommended that I just get it down at the moment, get the words out, don't fuss too much about.
But because of my background, I'm a great believer in structure, because I started out as a journalist, and journalistic training, they honed us down to even 6-word sentences.
Really?
And my mother was a journalist, and I remember her telling me once the greatest sentence in the English language is Jesus wept. A 2-word sentence, you know, and that is a very powerful sentence. Who is this great historic figure? Why is he weeping? You could make a whole mini-series based on that sentence. And that was useful training, but then when I had to change, even to writing columns, I had to change the idea of structure, because in journalism you put the core of the story at the top, like Charles was crowned king today. Camilla was wearing a dazzling gown, and then it will go down to how many people. Whereas if you were writing about it in for a novel, for example, you would go right back to that very first wedding of his, or even earlier. You know, the fact that
then crescendo to that.
Well, that would
becoming a king
probably be 2/3 the way through the book, unless it's a scandal book. So I had to learn that, and then when it came to writing a book, I got exactly where you are now, of this feeling of just, my goodness, I've got lumps, I've got these characters, I've got things I want to say, but it's just a mess. And Oh, that's Jonah, if you're
He's
listening.
doing a cameo appearance.
Yes.
Oh,
here
hello.
he is.
Hello.
So one book I found helpful was written by a choreographer, Twyla Tharp, and she was saying any form of creativity you have to have a structure to build it around. Like if you're doing a sculpture, you need that mesh stuff. If you're doing a ballet, you need to know when people are coming in and out, and it's the same with your book.
Yeah.
And one of the best things, I think, is to start opening it with a question or with a form of chaos that you need to unravel as the book goes on.
Well, I think I've done that. I reckon I've got my question and it's helping. It's just still...
So what is your question?
Well, my question is for this character. So I'm currently calling her Morel, which is French for miracle. The question is, Morel, very early on, so this is not a spoiler in case it ever gets published one day, very early on you see she's not happy and she wants to be pregnant. That's very clear from scene 1. She's not happy with her life and she wants to be pregnant. So I guess the initial quick question is, will she get what she wants? She's got this very clear desire to get pregnant, and she explains it in a sense, or the scene explains it pretty quickly. This is
Why does she want to get pregnant?
Because, well, it's a complex answer, because it's probably, how do I explain it? It's probably not the right solution for her, but she thinks it is. She's convinced that getting pregnant is going to be fantastic for her marriage. It's going to help her escape the job she hates. It's going to give her a career line in the sand moment that she feels she can use. And also, I think she's a bit lost, to be honest.
I think these are very common reasons for women to want to have babies.
I've seen it a lot. Of repairing a relationship, unfortunately, is something I've seen too, where people really do the opposite of probably what's sensible or needed, which is throw another human into a mix of a relationship that's not working well. So that's initially, I feel like that's the question I want the reader to get engaged with quickly. Is Morel going to get... Sorry. Is Morel going to get...
Jonah knocked the microphone off the table.
It's the hazards of working with
the cat. I know.
I guess that's my initial question, but then I sort of also want other things to come into the mix. So I don't want it to be, like, that's definitely the initial question.
Yeah.
Is that going to be what the reader ends up discovering? No, not necessarily. I want it to go beyond that. So, but yeah, I feel like I've got it in that sense, but it's just weird. Every time I go to write, it's such a funny feeling. It's like, you got to face this blank page. You've got to throw paint on the canvas. You just got to do it. And then I tend to step back. Like last night, for example, I spontaneously wrote a sex scene. I wasn't quite planning to. I've got a rough structure there. And then on reflection this morning, I was like, no, that wasn't the right sex scene. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to put it in a pile of scraps.
Did he keep his socks on?
I don't know.
See, these are the things you need to consider when you're writing a sex scene, because when have you ever had sex and it's been this most beautifully staged, perfect, orgasmic, nothing embarrassing happens scenario? I think
in your imagination,
probably.
But even then, I'll get quite fixated on the details.
And what did he have a zip, or had he taken his trousers off? Or
okay, I didn't mention his trousers.
Look, she's going pink. I'm afraid, yes, you might have to dig a little bit deeper into your sex scene.
That's good, yeah. Look, it was good to just write one, and I guess that's where I'm at, because I'm just putting paint on the canvas, and then you can
Did you say paint, not pain?
Paint.
Paint, yeah.
Yeah.
Paint and a bit of pain.
Yeah, and look, I sort of wrote it and then realised, no, that's not the right scene for now. That's not where they're
just keep it there for now. People have sex in all sorts of different circumstances, I'm told. I can hardly remember.
Allegedly. Yeah, maybe. So you don't think it's worth rewriting it now?
No, don't.
Just leave it in there. Or should I make a note and say...
Just leave it there for now.
Yeah.
You've got to work out whether he's keeping his socks on.
Okay.
But what I would love you to do, if you feel ready, is to do some chapter outlines, just saying what's going to happen in each chapter, and then we can see whether there's an arc in the story.
Yeah.
And then once we've sorted out that arc, then we can work out maybe subplots and where other characters change, how they change and develop through the story.
Yeah. Well, I've done a little bit of that. I might revisit it and send it over. Because,
I find it very easy to write chapter outlines, I think, for some reason, because it's kind of reassuring. It gives you a sense of direction. And look, that's not set in concrete. You can change it. And you'll find these characters grow and take on their own personality. Say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
you know. And then you.
Well, Morel got a bit loose last night.
Well, she's allowed, maybe.
She just took it in a new direction.
And look, the other thing is, we live in this very commercial world. People have very short attention spans. It's probably good if she's having sex pretty early on, in all honesty.
All right, okay. I just thought maybe it should have been more. One thing I've been thinking is I want to pummel Morel with some tough thing after tough thing. I want to kind of make sure. So I just wondered whether it should be a more off-key sex scene that doesn't go well.
Yeah. Is this with her husband or someone else? Yeah. So she's trying to get pregnant out of it.
Not specifically in this case.
Oh, well, that's healthy.
Yeah. So
I think those, I don't know much about it, but those, the type of sex people have just to have babies and they have to take their temperatures.
Yes,
it must be very inhibiting.
Yeah, well, I'm looking into that because it's from my experience in that sort of time. It's called, I think this is quite American, but they call it trying to conceive, TTC. If you Google online, TTC, there will be forums, there will probably be blogs dedicated to it, and I'm making my character.
Excuse my microphone, it's got a mind of its own.
It's very
talking about all
sensitive
this
with
sex.
its little tripods.
Here we are.
It is, it's flying off.
Yes.
TTC, trying to conceive. Yeah, I want her to be in that space where sex becomes not a chore, but it's a bit of a to-do list, and it takes away the so that's definitely the context.
Yes. Do you think, I don't know, you're so much younger than me, do you think people are having less sex now than they used to?
Apparently they are. I heard it on a podcast a while ago on one of the I think it was Mamma Mia Out Loud, that apparently Gen Ys or millennials, or maybe it was the next one down, they are having less sex, which a younger person than me was saying could be to do with the housing market's so hard to enter, therefore they're more likely to be at home with mum and dad.
I never thought about that.
Well, you just kind of leapt in, but I just mean that they're living at home for longer, so that could be a reason. Mum and dad are home, so that's not so sexy.
It's always the back seat of a car.
I don't know. I feel like young people...
They're too short. They would want something more luxurious. Too tall. They would want
better experiences.
Higher expectations.
They go to nice restaurants.
They want avocados and eggs for breakfast.
I think it's different. I don't know. And I think porn is a factor.
Porn.
I don't know why I said it so surreptitiously. I think that's changed expectations and standards, and
especially I've been told by my daughters the expectation of young men, because they watch all this really explicit stuff and expect to replicate that. So that's a tricky one. But so sex. And look, again, I'm in early stages, but I've noticed in my writing in the last 1,000 words in particular, I'm going into stuff that you don't commonly read about in books. I'm talking about periods, I'm talking about weeing on a stick pregnancy, I'm talking about TTC, I'm talking trying to conceive, and I want my character to be obsessed with this stuff. I want her to be looking into the toilet bowl. I mean, there'll be thousands
but I want it to be like that.
If not millions of women who will relate to that.
And miscarriages, because these are things I've had in real life.
And me too. I mean, how many women have had miscarriages? An awful lot.
Yeah, and there are some strong memories, I'm sure you have them too, of those moments, and they're not spoken about. So I want to pack all that stuff.
Well, this is good turf.
I think so. So look, I guess for now, I will I have done that structural work, I think, but what I've ended up doing, I wrote it on a Word document, so I'll revisit it and we'll look at it. But
chapter outlines.
Yeah, sort of. They're just little rough pointers, but at the moment I've stuck them around my room on cards so that I can move them around, and that seems to be working. And then I'm adding the detail on a post-it note.
Okay, as long as that works for your mind. That would be hard for me. But different minds, different thoughts.
I feel like I'm sitting in
arcs. Oh, good.
I feel like I'm sitting in a
spaceship.
Yes. I sort of feel like I'm sitting in a laboratory of my novel somehow.
Oh, wonderful. And that's the main
seems to
thing,
be
that you've
working.
actually got a space. And look, I said I did say on Facebook today
Yes.
that we would discuss whether a writer needs a room with a view or
Yeah,
not, because
okay.
I've got this study with a fabulous
Yeah, you
view,
do.
but
Yeah.
the first thing I've done is put my desk
Yeah,
facing the
that's
wall,
interesting.
because that is distraction. Looking out at the
Yeah.
magnolia tree coming into bloom, maybe I'd see a cat walking along the fence. This is not good material for
Yeah,
me.
that's
I need
true.
to focus.
In fact, I've done exactly the same. My view's not as pretty as that, but I've got a window and I'm exactly in the same position.
Good.
Facing a wall.
Yeah,
which is
because you've got
interesting.
to look at the garden inside your mind,
Oh,
not the
that's
garden
nice.
out the window.
We could make that into a meme. I like that. That's really cool. Now, speaking of memes, I reckon if you're happy with that clinic, do you feel that?
I think you've come a long way.
Oh, thank you.
And I hope you feel you've got your money's worth out of today. And
yes, and the dollar that you owe as well.
oh, I've got to pay the dollar. Yes, yes. And we didn't even get a chance for me to rant about false eyelashes, but we can do that next time.
We can.
I think it's been very constructive.
Yes. So, before we move on to our other little section, do you have a diagnosis for me? I think you've basically been saying to work on this plot outline, the chapter outline. Is that your diagnosis?
That's my recommendation, my prescription.
Yes.
And to keep looking at the fire, I would definitely
good.
give your mind a rest, let, if you want to call it the muse or your subconscious, let that creative energy step forward into your space.
Okay.
Don't go pushing it and clawing and begging it to come to you,
Yeah.
because you won't get the right outcome that way. It's a bit magic.
Yeah,
The whole
absolutely,
process.
of course.
So I'm very heartened by your current condition, and I think you're making good progress, and I look forward to
good.
some maybe just chapter headings even, so we can
Yeah,
see
okay.
how this slightly
Yes.
troubled woman progresses in
She's
her
a little
story.
bit
Her story? No, I nearly used dirty, but I didn't.
Oh, well
I
done.
didn't.
That's good. I hope I haven't said it this time.
No,
That's
I don't
terrible
think you
last time. One other little section we're going to do is, because my background is social media and marketing, so we're going to do a little thing called Planet Social, just at the end, after the diagnosis, because obviously things change so quickly in the world of social, and it's important for Helen as a writer, and there may be various listeners who have either businesses or they have an interest in their own personal profile, perhaps as a writer or an aspiring writer. Social media can certainly play a role in marketing and modern communication. So we're going to kind of do a little spotlight each week as well. So this week, I just wanted to call out to the fact that as we record, this is coming up. What's the date today? What's the
4th or 5th?
Is it the 6th?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the 5th. You've got a phone there.
The 7th!
Oh my gosh, we're just both in La La Land. I love it. So that means tomorrow, which will probably be after the fact for those listening, but tomorrow, the 8th of August, is International Cat Day. So
I know,
for you,
Jonah.
that's enough time.
I know Jonah's just been counting the hours. He can't wait. He's staring out the window right now
Staring
saying,
at the window.
only one more sleep and it's International Cat Day.
Exactly. So that could be a nice opportunity for Jonah to craft a beautiful post tomorrow. And I guess the reason why I was calling out to this is because years ago, I've been working in this space for actually years now, as in helping businesses with their social. We used to look at one task we would do back when I was in advertising is we'd put together a calendar of all the social days of the year in case there were opportunities for our brands to create a post